Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to show you 4 of the most effective movements to take you from here all the way down to here in just 4 months.
Welcome to our channel Moves Method, where we help athletes and fitness enthusiasts just like you to become the strongest, most flexible and resilient human beings around.
Now in this video specifically, we're talking about middle splits, and yeah, it's a cool skill, but what you acquire in the process is going to be so much more valuable.
You're going to get stronger muscles, more resilient joints, you're going to prevent and eliminate injuries, but most of all, you are going to become a well-rounded athlete.
So let's get into it.
So the first exercise that we're going to talk about is the horse stance. This is one of my favorite exercises for developing middle splits, and it is used widely in martial arts, in Shaolin, in Kung Fu. So Josh is going to get into a 5-step horse stance, which is typically where we start beginners, and it's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Feet are pointing forward. He's going to drop down as low as he can, and he's going to lean his torso back, pushing the hips forward, driving the knees out, and trying to maintain a posterior pelvic tilt. We want to hold this position isometrically like this for up to 60 seconds. For beginners, I would start with 30, work my way up to 60. Eventually, I want to be holding 3 minutes plus of this isometric position. This is going to develop strong adductors, strong hips, strong knees, strong ankles, and it's going to help you to be able to go wider in the middle splits later on. Now, the most important thing to remember here is the position of your pelvis. You want to be in a posterior pelvic tilt, okay? This is going to be quite hard on your hips. It's developing hip strength. So Josh is working really hard here to hold this. If he was to put his hands out front, this is a little bit easier because you kind of counterbalance as opposed to putting your hands behind you. So you can progress this by holding your hands behind you, by adding a little bit of weight behind you as well and holding that, and obviously holding positions longer. So we want to build up to holding 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes of a horse stance. Once you achieve 7 minutes of a horse stance, you're on your way to the splits, so they say. And here's a quick tip on how you can establish your position and make sure that you're not cheating. You grab a stick, and this stick, Josh has very long legs, so this stick, but you place the stick on top of your thighs and it has to stay there. So I'm going to time Josh. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stick didn't fall off. If he was positioned too far forward with his torso, which means his ass is too high in the sky, the stick would fall off. If he was cheating and keeping the stick really glued into his hips, he's cheating again. So that's how you can measure your position and make sure that you're staying honest. I would start working the horse stance 2 to 3 times a week, starting with 60-second holds for 3 sets, and building that up each week until you get to 3-minute holds for 3 to 5 sets, 2 to 3 times a week. That's your horse stance.
Good job. Okay, next up we have the straddle up. Now this is one of my favorite dynamic movements to work towards middle splits. So Vanya's going to start in a straddle position here. Obviously hers is very wide. Come bring your legs in a bit. So the closer your legs are, that's absolutely fine, but you are going to need to compensate with more flexible hamstrings. Okay, so you want to try and get as wide as you really can whilst being able to sit upright. Okay, you don't want to be leaning back too much. Lean back a bit. If you're leaning like this and having to put your hands on the ground behind you, you're probably a little bit too wide. Okay, so sit in a place where you feel comfortable, and then from here, Vanya is going to push herself into the ground. She's going to drive the heels of her feet into the ground, and she's going to use strength to pick herself up into a standing middle split position. She's then going to stick the butt out and lower herself back down as slowly and controlled as possible until she's back in the straddle position. So no, as she comes up, it's very controlled. She's not using momentum to push her forward, and then same coming down. She's not just slamming her ass back on the ground. She is slowly controlling herself back down to the position. Now, if this is too hard, which likely it will be for a lot of people, you can make the movement easier by elevating the butt onto a surface. So we're going to come over here and we're going to show you. So the higher the surface is, the easier this movement is going to be. And then as you build more strength, as you build more flexibility, you can make the surface lower and lower until you can get all the way down to the ground. So again, even on this surface, notice how it's very slow and controlled. She's not using momentum to come forward. She's driving the heels of her feet into the ground and using her strength to bring her up. And then back on the way down, butt comes back first, and then the body comes after. So First part of the movement, think as you come forward, you're going to think of bringing the butt up to the sky. So think of it as a piece of string, pulling your butt towards the sky as if you're doing a straddle good morning. Okay, and then from there, she's now going to drive the heels of her feet in and thrust forward until she's in the standing position. Back down, we're going to reverse. So butt comes back first, and then we're going to go up from the good morning. So you're going to perform this movement 3 sets of 10 reps, ideally twice a week, 3 times a week if possible. And you're going to go at a height that challenges you throughout those 10 reps, okay? You're going to progressively overload the movement as the weeks go on by lowering the surface and or increasing your reps as well. On your 10th rep, so your final rep, you want to hold this top position here, still driving the heels of your feet into the ground, because this is where the strength is built. This is going to require a lot of strength to hold this position, and this is going to allow you to progress a lot faster through this movement. So give this a go, and that is your straddle good morning.
Good job. Okay, so the next move takes over from where we finished in the straddle up, which is the isometric middle split hold. Now Josh is going to get into the lowest position that he can maintain for at least 30 to 60 seconds. This is strength, you guys. This is not passive stretching, and this is very, very difficult to hold for extended periods. Your hips are on fire, your glutes are on fire, your adductors, your knees, your ankles, everything is working to build that isometric strength. The most important thing you want to remember here is you want to keep your legs locked and you want to keep your pelvis slightly tilted. So if you stand up, Josh, and you turn sideways, where most people go wrong in this exercise is that they try to push their hips forward and stay in this posterior tilt. This is very difficult if you don't have a lot of flexibility. So what you want to do is you want to arch your back slightly and stick your booty out. So anterior pelvic tilt, get into that lowest position you can, and then squeeze everything. So you want to think about squeezing your feet into each other. You want to think about activating your quads. You want to think about kind of squeezing the hip area, the glutes, the abs, everything is switched on, and your torso is slightly back as well. And guys, if you hold this for 30 seconds, your legs will be fried. Over time, as you build that strength, you'll be able to get lower and lower and lower into the positions until eventually you'll be able to hold it in between chairs. That's the goal. Now, I would approach this 2 to 3 times a week. Again, it will complement your straddle ups really nicely. 2 to 3 times a week. Start off with 30 seconds, 3 sets. Get into the lowest position and then slowly build time. Once you build time, then you're going to go back, you're going to reduce the heights, you're going to try to get a bit lower, and then go back to 30 seconds. And that's how you work your way up and you build the strength over time.
Ideally, you would warm up before doing a movement like this. So if you're doing a leg day and you're doing squats, it's great to complement squats and do at the end of your sessions when your muscles are already warm and activated. Next, we're going to work on the pancake fold, which looks a little bit like this. Now, we're going to show you how to regress it in just a moment, but this is a great movement to be working towards. It's going to really help complement your splits training. It's also going to teach you to articulate your pelvis so you can build more flexibility and get more range throughout your hips. So, where do you start? First, we're going to work on our anterior to posterior pelvic tilt. So Vanya is going to stand in a slight straddle, not too wide, but not too close together, about a bit wider than shoulder width apart, okay? She's then going to start in an anterior pelvic tilt. So think influencer bum, sticking your bum out on the ground, through to posterior tilt, which is this. Think thrusting forward, core tight as if you're about to take a punch, okay? And then we're going to go between the two. We're going to go for 10 reps here. I'm going to go for 3 sets. This is great to implement into your warm-up, and it's going to complement any training that you do.
All right, so now that we have learnt our anterior posterior tilt, we're going to add an element of strength to it. So Josh is going to get into his influencer butt position, booty sticking out, and he's going to think about bowing down into a good morning. You want to stop at a point where you start to lose that arch and that flat back. If your back starts to round, if you're going too low. So come back up. It's totally okay if you stop, go a little lower, just there. That's totally fine. You're building that strength and progressively lowering. The most important thing to remember, arch your lower back, stick your booty out. Imagine being pulled up by a string, so your tailbone needs to go up to the sky as you bow forward. Your legs remain locked, and you want to imagine that you're squishing something in between your hip flexor here. So if I was to put a piece of paper, I'd want to squish that into my hip flexor. Back is nice and flat, and he's moving in and out of that position. Over time, the goal is to get your torso parallel to the ground, and once you've achieved that, you can progress by adding more load. You can add load even when you're here because load will help you get lower. But if you don't have the flexibility, I prefer to kind of use body weight until I can get my torso at least somewhat parallel or close to parallel to the ground. I would be working this position at 10 reps at a time and then pausing for 10 seconds in the last rep where we are building the isometric strength again. When you do add load, come back up. You can add a barbell. You can add a weight plate, you can hold a weight plate at your chest as well. And over time, we're building strength again in this extended position. This is your standing, straddle, locked knee, good morning. Again, I would implement this 2 to 3 times a week along with your straddle ups, which will complement it really nicely. And it will just teach you how to tilt that pelvis and strengthen it in that compressed position.
Then when you're able to take your body parallel to the ground and you're really comfortable with the movement, with good form, we can then progress the movement. We can take it a step further by getting down lower. So we're not going to quite be at the ground yet like Vanya was at the beginning, but we are going to be on a surface as low as we feel comfortable and as low as we can maintain that same form that Vanya just explained. So again, she's going to aim to get her body parallel to the ground with weight. And as she's able to achieve this, she's then going to continue progressing the movement by lowering the surface. Exactly the same sets, reps, structure, principles that Vanya just taught. We're just progressing the movement by lowering the butt.
So you can see how the progressions that we have shown you would lead you to eventually be able to do this. We've learned how to articulate the pelvis. We've learned how to add load and then strengthen that position. And we've learned how to get lower and lower over time until eventually we're able to get to the floor.
So again, this is going to really complement your splits training. Make sure to incorporate this into your training at whatever level we've just shown you. So to recap here, the 4 movements we've gone over today: the horse stance, the straddle up, the isometric middle split hold, and the pancake. Okay, all 4 are really going to help you open up your hips, build up the strength to support your joints in those end ranges, so you have so much more resilience, so much more longevity in whatever it is you go and do, whether that's sport, whether that's playing with your kids in daily life. Definitely implement these into your training.
And the way that you would incorporate these exercises is probably do them all in the same session 2 to 3 times a week and work your way up to developing more range, holding positions longer and adding more load.
Thank you for watching. I hope you managed to take value from this. Next week, we're going to be doing exactly the same thing, but for front splits. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Come check out next week, and we're going to do a whole bunch of things moving forward as there. We're going to be consistently posting over the coming months. So feel free to drop a comment if there's anything in particular you want to see, and we'll make sure to get that out for you. Any final words?
Peace out, keep moving.